Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Three Wells podcast. Yet another great installment. I'm here with Mr. Ernest B. Oh, and he's fixing his hair. Look at it.
Yeah,
You
there we
look great.
go.
Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
there we go. It was just,
You're,
I have this thing. I took care of it. I have a great hairdresser. It just fell right in my face. So everybody has been there.
So this is a Three Wells podcast. So live well, be well, and do well. And I'm sure if you've listened before, you've heard us say that before. And it is our namesake. So nice hair, Ernest, and I am Jason. We are both on the executive team. I can't speak today of Three Wells, and we are obviously supporters of cannabis and marijuana and weed, whatever you want to call it. And today, Ernest and I are talking about 420.
420.
Yep, the holiday. And Ernest, why don't you describe 420 in case anyone who's listening doesn't know what the heck 420 is or the relevance? And actually, why don't you give us a history lesson on 420?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people, first and foremost, 420 is the unofficial or maybe official holiday for all things cannabis. And it's a once a year thing. If you've been on Google, if you've been online at all in the last 24 to 48 hours of your life or anywhere in the last week, you will have noticed a lot of advertisement about 420 in cannabis. And many people don't even know where 420 really started. So Jason and I actually jumped in and we thought, hey, why don't we give you guys the background? So there's a lot of lore around this too, Jason. I know you've heard stories. I've heard some. Some people think it's a reference to Adolf Hitler's birthday, which is April 20th, 1889. That's a really fun, random one. There's
maybe not so fun,
but not so fun.
Random.
Definitely not fun, but super random. I should take that back. Not fun, but random. Bob Dylan's legendary "Everybody Must Get Stoned." There was a refrain in "Rainy Day Women." There was all kinds of stuff here, but the real reality behind this is that it could be traced back to a group of 5 California teens who used to hang out by a wall outside of their San Rafael school, a meeting spot that inspired their nickname, the Waldos.
Hey, by the way, it's San Rafael. It's not San Rafael. It's San Rafael. I know because I'm in Northern California. So all the people from San Rafael, and you go, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, we do. It's San Rafael. Don't worry.
Hey, yeah, it's a English is a second language, I think. So, we're learning as we go. So the fun thing about all of this, the Waldos, in the fall of 1971, the story goes that they learned of a Coast Guard member who had planted a cannabis plant and could no longer tend to the crop. They had a treasure map. They say that the guy that was part of the Coast Guard actually gave it to him themselves, and it would lead to the abandoned product. So the group would meet at the Louis Pasteur statue outside their high school at least once a week to conduct a search. And their meeting time, of course, 4:20 p.m. They were all athletes. This was after school. So they would scour around the forest for this elusive free marijuana. And one of the original members, Steve Capper, would remind each of these guys in the hallway every day that they were supposed to meet up at 4:20. And that's how 4:20 started. So that's the story.
I used to live, so I used to actually look right over that high school and that campus. So in case anyone's thinking that even that's made up, it's not. It's absolutely true. But I guess the interesting thing is, just riffing on that history, Ernest, is that it kind of died out for many years, the whole notion of 420. Yeah, for the hardcore cannabis and back in the day potheads, which I don't like saying anymore, potheads, just because it's an old irrelevant term. And I mean no disrespect to all those that fought for cannabis in the early days. I think it's just it's got so much more to it now than it did when the term potheads came around. So again, I mean no offense, but the interesting thing is it died out. Now, back in about 1990, and I know this because I used to market the Grateful Dead for years, which was another interesting story.
That's another
guys.
Podcast right there.
Yeah, it is. Well, maybe not. So, what happens behind the scenes of the Grateful Dead stays there. But anyway, great bunch of guys. But what happened in about 1990 is at one of their concerts, I forget which one it was, but they the fans started handing out these flyers and sort of revived this whole notion of 420. They said smoke hardcore pot at 420, and they were referring to the time 420. But then that kind of took a life on its own, and then they referred back to, well, the ultimate 420 is April 20th. But the Grateful Dead really sort of reinvigorated that whole thing, unbeknownst, I think, to the band. But we all know that, you know, their affinity for cannabis. But the interesting thing is the guys are really balanced when it comes to drugs. I'm talking about the Grateful Dead. That, yeah, they're you know, totally open to cannabis. They're totally open to all kinds of different drugs, but they're not as drug oriented as the lore would have you think. They're pretty straight ahead guys. There's, you know, they're pretty easygoing, let people do what they want to do, but, you know, they're not the hardcore potheads that people think they are. But I think we owe it to the Grateful Dead that, you know, that brought that all back around. And of course the statue's still around, and that whole lore is really cool. And I don't know if all the students at San Rafael High know that they are in the epicenter of what is now 420. But let's talk about 420, Ernest. So, you know, I hear a lot of different opinions about 420. And and by the way, some of the other lore around 420 is that Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison all die, you know, on the 20th. That's not true. There's all kinds of other lore about, you know, the day and the time and where it came from. What you cited was, I believe, and I think most people that understand the history believe is the truth. But let's talk about 420, where it is now, and where we think it's going to go, and is it relevant? Because, you know, I ask most of the people I know, not all, you know, what do you think of 420? And candidly, a lot of them say, I don't even know what that is. Like, what are you talking about? And then there's a whole nother group that are, oh, 420, you know, you got to party that day, or, you know, to them it's like Cinco de Mayo. But I got a bunch of thoughts and opinions. But Ernest, what about you?
You know, here I'm going to ask you the first question before we go there. When was the last time you truly celebrated 420, Jason?
Well, define celebrate.
Well, you know, maybe had a cannabis gummy on the last 420, or tell us about your biggest 420 bash.
Well, last year, got together with some friends virtually, because remember, we were in lockdown last 420, so it was kind of thin. Really didn't party much, but before that, the year before that, it was light. Like I see it more as of a celebration of the plant and of what it can do, and the bigger picture, more than an excuse to get messed up or whatever. And I got to be, you know, brutally candid, is I'm not a big altered states guy, so I'm not looking to go out and get stoned or even drunk or any of that. It's just not my gig. But I do celebrate the day out of respect for the plant, and I don't mean to make it all sort of intellectual. Trust me, I'm not. But, you know, part two of your question, you know, I think I've mentioned on other podcasts that, you know, I take a gummy every night. It's only 5 milligrams of THC, but, you know, to me, I'm kind of celebrating 420 every night with a good night's sleep. That sounds incredibly boring. I know, but man, in this day and age, with the stress we have with COVID and work and the economy and all, if you get a good night's sleep, I think that's a celebration.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think one of the things that you just mentioned there, and you know, personally from my experience, I definitely don't. 420 for me is more or less a cannabis product shopping day. You know, I look at it as Black Friday, and even if I jumped onto Google right now, I'm seeing the deals. This morning, I bought a bunch of you know, tinctures, CBD tinctures and stuff from a few of our brands. So that was, you know, pretty interesting. But I feel like there's a bit of an evolution, and 420 has this stigma around it, Jason. We've seen it. People hate it. I think if they don't know cannabis, there's this huge, I think, missing gap between what we would consider the stoners, you know, the guy that's wearing the, what's it called? I don't even know what the name is, but you would get it on a beach in Mexico, you know, the pullover thing that's knit out of hemp flower. Or,
yeah.
There's probably somebody listening going, "Oh, this is
Oh,
this.
come
How did
on.
you not know this?" Yeah,
It's
come
like
on,
a
guys. You guys
poncho
are
or something like
terrible.
that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's the image I see versus and I feel like after spending a lot of time, people who are, if you're listening to this and you're not in a legal state, and it's still illegal to purchase this product, or you have to go through a medical platform, I think the stigma there is much stronger and people just don't get it. Meanwhile, in legal states, I feel like people are much more open to it. They look at it in this positive lens, and even terms such as California sober, I feel like makes sense when talking about 420. And for those that don't know what California sober is, it's basically not drinking alcohol, not doing anything there, not being, not partying too hard, but just smoking marijuana or consuming marijuana. So I don't know. I think there's definitely a need for change. We'll see where it goes, but 420 has definitely fallen by the wayside, and recently is resprung as something exciting for the professionals of the world who maybe were not cannabis oriented prior.
Yeah, we have the big, like I said, for those who don't know, I'm in Northern California. In San Francisco, there's a huge 420 every year that goes on for days. And this year, unfortunately, because we're still in the COVID, under the COVID gloom, and it's, every day is Blur's Day. There is no big celebration this year. There's still, out of an abundance of caution. But so traditionally, I've seen these celebrations. I've been part of the 420 celebrations. I think that's still going to go on because why not? I mean, it's like Cinco de Mayo, right? We all need an excuse well, some more than others need an excuse to go out and have some fun and party and just let loose. And that's all great. But I think 420 is going to evolve, and I think it's got to evolve if we're going to release ourselves and release our country from the stigma that's been forced into our psyche over decades of anti-cannabis propaganda. And I don't mean to go on a crusade here at all, but it's terribly unfounded. And anyone who feels like it isn't, I'd read our articles, do your homework wherever you want to do your homework. 3wells.co is a great place to start, obviously. But when you really get your head around the plant and you get your head around the endocannabinoid system and how we as human beings physiologically operate and what our bodies need, it's an incredible thing, the plant, that is. And then anyone who says, oh yeah, but it can't be good for you and blah, blah, blah. Look at what the pharmaceutical companies, the drink companies, the tobacco, et cetera, why is it if what we say about the benefits of cannabis and the health and the physical and the psychological strengths of the plant, if they're not true, then why are all those verticals or those segments of business investing so much into cannabis right now and trying to gain control? If you look at what happened in Kentucky a while ago, they wanted to legalize it, but then the wine and spirits industries tried to step in and control it like alcohol. And people said, you know what, we'd rather not legalize it because it should be open and free to everyone. It shouldn't be under so much control and be taken away from people that we're just going to say, forget it. We don't want to legalize it. If you're going to control it, we don't want to legalize it. So anyways, I'm getting off target a bit here, but my point is that I think 420's got to evolve and be more welcoming. And it's not just about going and getting stoned in a field with a bunch of other people that are wearing, tie-dye t-shirts, steelies, and long hair, because that's not all what it's about. I think 420 can be like, International Wine Day or, Cheese Day or something that's got something for everyone. I think it needs to evolve. It has to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up so many really strong points as we look around to the changing landscape of both our country and the world. A lot of socioeconomic issues were created due to the prohibition of marijuana across the country. There were a lot of discriminatory practices that were attached to this. And, for what it's worth, right, as we're kind of progressing and across the country, to your point, there's a ton of investment. States are legalizing time and time again. I think finally people are opening their eyes and realizing the effects aren't negative. you mentioned all this investment. We're getting investment from the pharmaceutical industry themselves. Epidiolex, the impact on children and young adults who are suffering from a variety of seizures and different things, right? Medically that could be treated. And just recently, and I'll link this, but there were a few articles talking about just the impact of cannabis as a treatment for cancer. And we're going to be talking to Nurse Penny. If you guys listen to our podcast, she'll be talking about cancer and sex and all of these things, and how cannabis can be a great part of that. So we're seeing a lot more traditional medical practices open their doors and arms up to the benefits of cannabis without the impact that pharmaceuticals do on your body. Now, the evolution of 420, another great point, Jason, right? I think it's a progressive opportunity for us to say, let's take us out of this weird, dark place where it was cannabis is bad and you're a bad person and you're going to go crazy and the youth is going to be corrupted if they consume cannabis, and in a way make it so that 420 is a day where we say we've made a very forward move in society. We've opened this up and we've finally allowed us to see the benefits of this plant. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I would like to see people on 420 start to come out a little more. And what I mean by that is, I can't tell you how many people I know that take cannabis but are so afraid to tell anyone. I'm over 50, and so I have a son in his teens, and a lot of my friends are in the same position. Whether it's tweens or teens. And they're afraid to have this conversation with their kids. And I think 420 would actually be a good excuse, because guaranteed your teenage kid or older knows what 420 is. And it's a good excuse to have a discussion about, hey, how do what is this new way we should be looking at cannabis? And use 420 as the catalyst to do that. Because I can't tell you how many of my friends and acquaintances that have come to me after I've encouraged them to talk to their kids, or if they have parents that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And I said, hey, go talk to your parents about it. How many of them have come back and said, oh my gosh, they had no issue, whether it was their parent or their kid. And there was 90% of the time, the response for those people has been from the other person. Yeah. So, okay. Do you like it? Is it good? So I would love to see people use 420 for that reason.
I think that's a phenomenal reason. And I'll tell you from personal experience, very little known fact, I actually have never tried cannabis. It was until I was 25 years old that I tried cannabis for the first time. Never touched it through high school, through college. My background, I come from a very strict Eastern European household. I'm a first generation here in America. So that conversation never happened, Jason. It was more of, Ernest, if I catch you or police come, you dead, that was about it. So Ernest stayed away as much as possible from all of that. But what I see that so many young people right now, alcohol, for example, in Europe, there really isn't age limits. There, I guess there are legally, but alcohol isn't as stringent in the U.S. In terms of youth, right? You see kids, people are having parties. Yeah, everybody has a glass of wine, but also the drinking culture there isn't what it is in the U.S. And I think when you look at cannabis,
you said that in Europe it's not as stringent.
Not as stringent, right? As the U.S. Here, you get carded. You got to make sure you're 21 to get into a bar, right? Everybody's very weird about consumption of alcohol. In Canada, I think it's 18 that you can buy a beer, or 19 now. Europe, similar, 16, 15, whatever it is, depending on the country. Some don't have any at all. So same thing with cannabis. I feel like the socialization and understanding and really knowing what it is kind of helps the education part and making sure that people hear it from you as a trusted source, as a parent or as an authority in their life or someone they look up to. 420 is a great use for that, so that they don't get into a situation where they're at a party somewhere later on in life and they have no clue and don't know how to act or get into trouble by trying something that they shouldn't try.
Yeah, I had the discussion with my son when I got into the cannabis industry years ago, And I just sat down with him. I spoke very plainly with him. I think at the time he was like 14 or something like that. Um, and I just told him about it. I said, it's akin to alcohol, but in my opinion, it's easier on your body, and it doesn't have the devastating effects that alcohol can. And I can't tell you how many people, when I say that to them, they're like, "Oh, come on, you're smoking and blah blah blah." No, I actually don't smoke cannabis. I eat it, and other ways too. But you can't overdose on cannabis. You would die from smoke inhalation if you were smoking it before you would die from the actual THC or anything else in the plant. Whereas you can get alcohol poisoning, or you can become so silly or debilitated because of alcohol that you do other things that you end up hurting yourself or someone else. It is so difficult to do that with cannabis because it can, at a certain point, you just become so tired, you just lay down and go to sleep. But my point is that staying on the theme of 420 and using it as a catalyst for conversation with whomever, parent, child, whatever. The thing I would encourage everyone who's listening, if they're talking to their kids, anyone under 21, is to treat it, with the same rules as alcohol. Like, don't do this because you're too young, and it's not an age thing, it's a physiological thing. And it's cannabis, like alcohol or anything else, that if you ingest too much of it, it's actually harmful to your body because you're still growing. Your cells are still, immature, and they're still maturing. So drinking too much or smoking too much cannabis or even eating too much cannabis is not good for people under 21 because of their brain development. And that's well documented for both cannabis and for alcohol. So treating it the same way. And if you have that conversation, what I noticed with my son was that now he looks at it very casually, alcohol and cannabis in the same way, and he treats them both with the same respect and reverence. So I don't think he's the most innocent kid in the world, and anyone who thinks their kid is absolutely innocent, I think, is naive. But I think he's well balanced, and I think it's because of those conversations.
Yeah, and to your point, Jason, I think in today's modern era, every kid above 14 has a data plan and an iPhone with access to Google. So,
Yeah.
they know a lot more than it would surprise you how much these kids know. I mean, there was this little 5-year-old kid that judged me on something I didn't know how to do, one of my cousins on a computer, and he did it in like 3 seconds. I was like, my God, what is going on here? So I kind of felt like my grandfather when I was trying to show him how to use a phone.
So here's a little saying I gave my son: if Mother Nature didn't make it, don't take it. So cannabis, there are all kinds of other things. If it didn't come from Mother Nature, then just don't touch it because you don't know what's in it.
Yeah. And another thing you brought up, which a lot of people don't know, is absolutely. Smoking is terrible for you. Anything you combust and put in your lungs, just like smoking cigarettes, no matter what the substance is, if you're burning something, think about all those chemicals going inside of your lungs, creating that damage. The beauty of cannabis and where we're going in the industry, and you guys can check out all these products that we have. We'll talk about these different types of products on threewells.co. A little shameless plug, but you don't have to smoke anymore. There are great other alternatives. You can do a tincture. There are fast acting tinctures, Wana brands. If you're in Colorado or California, and they have I think a few other states. I think Michigan is another state that they're in. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason. And of course, you guys should definitely jump on their website and take a look. But they have these new fast-acting tinctures that, as I understand, they will basically they'll feel just like you're smoking, or they'll hit just as quickly, and they don't last as long, and they're delicious. They have a bunch of great flavors. So you've got tablets as well. There's this company called Breeze based in California. They make these little 20 milligram tablets that you can just put under your tongue, fast-acting. So there's various ways. And if you are I love, I smoked a pack of Marlboros a day for like 30 years, and you want that cessation or that sensation of smoking, you can still do that. But there are vape products where you take the actual flower and you put it inside that vape, and it's portable or it's desktop, and you can vaporize that dry flower in a medical grade device and not have the impacts of smoking, but still get the effects. So lots of options.
Yeah, you mentioned the fast acting stuff in the tablets. Meter is another good one. They have those tiny little tablets, and there's boom, they work quick. But let's come back to 420. We kind of drifted off 420 for a second. So Um, I would encourage people to have a 420 party like they have a Cinco de Mayo party. I mean, why not? You got within the span of what, 3 weeks, you get 2 reasons to throw a good party. And I've been to a few, and I've heard of other good 420 parties, and the ones I liked the most were really casual. And what they did is they had for the 420 party, they understood that people like to consume in different ways. So they had a platter of gummies, and they identified, they're fast acting or they're regular gummies. Because the fast acting, to your point, Ernest, they'll hit you in, like, I think it's 20 minutes or less. Actually, I think it's in 5 or 10 minutes, come to think of it. And
Yeah.
then the slower stuff can take you 45 minutes to an hour. So they had these different labeled plates out with these different edibles, and there were some chocolates there as well. And by the way, some of the chocolates that, Papa and Coda, Papa and Barkley, that is, and Coda and some others, man, some of those chocolates are really good, dangerously good, because they taste so good that you forget there's THC in them, and, you can have a little too much.
My advice, break off that little piece, put it in your mouth, and hide the rest of it. These things,
Yeah.
and that's a quick tangent there, but Jason, you brought up a great thing. If it's been a while since you've tried a cannabis chocolate edible product, and I'm saying if it's been years, or you can't even remember the last time you did it, or you tried it and it was homemade from a friend, go, if you're in a legal state, go into a dispensary, look for a few products. This is gourmet level. What these companies are doing today, they're making these chocolates taste incredible. Like you said, Jason, they're using organic cocoa and different types of ingredients to make them quite gourmet. So well worth giving them a try.
Yeah. So staying on that 420 party. So they had the platters of different edibles. Then of course they had some flour. And the interesting thing was the flour. So that's the raw plant itself. When we say flour, that's what we're referring to. A couple people had those vaporizers. What are they called? It begins with an M. Do you remember? The big one that Greg has. Mighty or something. We'll look it up.
It's the Mighty. Yeah, the stores in Bickle Mighty. Yeah, and they also have a few desktop ones too.
People had that, and then there were some pre-rolls. But the interesting thing is they didn't put out alcohol, which I thought was smart. And I think, for any real 420 party, I'm not advocating to or not to put out alcohol, but you really should separate the two, because two things can happen with alcohol and cannabis when you mix it. One is you just don't feel right because you have two things acting on you at the same time, and people respond to it in different ways. Other people, one cancels out the other. So you end up negating any of the effects that you're looking for, a little relaxation or whatever it may be. And the other thing is when you start to, if someone is really drunk, they're not paying attention to how much cannabis they could consume, and they could overconsume. So if you're going to have alcohol and cannabis, just watch out for your guests. That's why I appreciated at this party I was at pre-COVID, they didn't mix the two, which was nice, because then there was no risk of that. And the other thing they did is that some people can get pretty dry, dry mouth when they take cannabis. So they had a lot of like really good drinks. I don't mean alcohol drinks, but everything from punches to interesting juices, and some of them, and they had some Gatorade and water, because some people do get dry mouth. And so they took care of everybody. And I would say within half an hour, that party starting, it was rocking, and no one was throwing up, no one was breaking glasses, no one, driving drunk, none of that. It was just a well-handled party. So I say 420 should live strong, get rocking with it, and have these parties. Why not?
And if you are invited to one, ask if you can bring a +1. If you've got a mature adult in your life, a parent or someone you've been trying to convince to give this a try, maybe that's a good opportunity to get them out the door, and to see how, comfortable everybody else is around it. And I think that's something, I try to get my parents, to give it a try. And the response was, if Becky's dad does it or something, maybe we'll see. So it helps to be in a positive environment that shows that it's not that wild.
All right, Ernest. I I'm tapped out on 420. I think I think we got everything that we can share with everyone other than, hey, go give it a try, give it a whirl, use it as an excuse to have a party, talk about it, get friends or family involved of the right age with the plant and with the product. What about you, Ernest? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think the last thing I will say, we are just coming out of a funky period with the pandemic, and I know, cleanliness and hygiene is a big concern for everybody. There are a ton of producers that make different products. Gummies are great ways to celebrate 420, and other edibles that are kind of single serve, that you don't have to pass anything around. So great way to keep that in mind. And to your earlier point, Jason, I think we're seeing a lot of major cities celebrate and embrace this. I'm just looking at right now, I pulled up a quick 420 food and drink deals in Miami for 420, different things across different cities, and they're pretty awesome. So if you're looking for great deals, a way to get somebody involved and show them that cannabis isn't all that wild, and break down some stereotypes and destigmatize it, I think you should try some gummies, go out, have a good time, and celebrate.
Good advice, Ernest. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up our little chat about 420. So you got the history, you got some party ideas, you even got some opinions from two guys that are immersed in this industry. We hope it was all entertaining and valuable. And if you want more information on products, or we've got an article all about 420, and of course everything else about cannabis, CBD, THC, the list goes on. Educate yourself, be wise, have fun. And of course, at Three Wells, we're always saying, we always believe, be well, live well, and do well. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody. Ernest, as always, good chatting.
Good
All right,
chatting.
everybody. Take care.